Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Well, this is a very special Shabbat, a very special weekend for our country, Martin Luther King Jr. Shabbat weekend. The third Monday in January is actually close to Dr. King's birthday in 1929. We remember Dr. King as a giant of justice and as a friend of the Jewish community. His memory is definitely a blessing. This Shabbat is special for the Davids family as well, as our youngest grandchild, Hannah Davids, will be celebrating her bat mitzvah this Saturday afternoon. Hannah is absolutely, most definitely, a blessing. The story of the Exodus is most certainly not a travelogue. We have absolutely no idea the exact directions in which the Israelites traveled during the 40 years wandering. No archaeological markers have been found testifying to locations, nor are there reliable documents from other peoples, neighboring peoples, referring to the events described from the beginning of the book of Exodus to the very, very last words of the book of Deuteronomy. But it is absolutely certain that for more than 3,000 years the Jewish people has taught and believed that it was born during the Exodus. During those mostly inscrutable years, our teachers have found the unbreakable foundations of our practices, our beliefs, our methods of approaching God, our system of ethics, our self-perceptions, and our dreams for the next stage of human evolution. Born in the desert, our journey has shaped whatever it is that we describe as Western civilization. Every line of this week's Sedra, Shmot, Exodus chapter 1, verse 1 following, well known to us. The Pharaoh who forgot who we were, slavery, the birth of Moses and his adoption into the family of Pharaoh, Moses' flight from Egypt and the encounter at the burning bush, the call of Moses to the role of Redeemer. Moses and Aaron meet Pharaoh and make their demands, and Pharaoh's stubborn refusal. All there. But despite such a proliferation of details, Aviva Zornberg points out how much of real significance is actually left unexplained here. Were the Israelites complicit in their own enslavement? Did they forget their past and shrug their shoulders at their future? Or was Pharaoh's cruel and dismissive view of the Israelites an unintended harbinger of the next 3,000 years of Jewish life? What gave the midwives the courage to ignore Pharaoh's order to kill all male Jewish babies? What was life like for Moses in Pharaoh's palace? And finally, what could the ideas of liberation, of freedom, of emancipation possibly mean to those whose own sense of agency had been totally crushed? Inspired by commentators such as Nachmanides, Ramban, each of those unanswered questions became on their own a pretext for rabbinic exposition, through the creating of midrashim to the discovery of endless truths hidden within every word and phrase. So, can't do it all. Let's take a few minutes to examine just one question. It's a simple one. What makes a people worthy of being redeemed? Easy. Reason number one, the nobility of that people's heritage. That makes sense, right? The Israelites had Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, even Joseph, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, others. We had covenants made with God, promises as to the inevitability of our extraordinary destiny. We had a backstory of revolutionary independence from the practices of other nations. We were desert-based blue bloods. Of course, we were worthy of being redeemed, no question. But the Torah rejects our reason number one. Actually, we were a fractious people, disobedient, rebellious, and fully self-absorbed. We rejected every offering from God the moment that we were thirsty or we felt threatened. We were a group of wanderers, had no real sense that they were destined for anything positive at all. Okay, so we weren't redeemed because we had nobility in our past. Fine. Why then? Answer number two. We were ripe for redemption. We had held tight to our founding traditions. We refused to be absorbed into the culture of our neighbors. We preserved our names and our dreams. We were the driest of tinder, waiting for a match to be struck. Rabbinic tradition certainly would not opt for answer number two either. The longer that we stayed in Egypt, the further that we drifted from our own past. We changed our names. We married into the families of other peoples. We met other gods, and in some cases were attracted to worship them. Egypt had a fabulous attraction to death and the afterlife. These never were really big concerns of our people, but the poetry, the majesty of Egyptian death obsessiveness, the burial pyramids, the skills of embalming, all made the Egyptian aesthetic very attractive to us. Forget answer two. Then answer three. We were suitable for redemption because we didn't spend a lot of time bemoaning our fate. We had a strict way of looking at the future. After all, what God would single out a group of whining and feckless followers so as to make them worthy of creating a new universe of belief and of hope? Yet, the rabbis almost seem to believe that we Jews developed a world-class skill at whining. Whenever things got tough, we became mush. Enemies threatened. Let's run. Food is lacking. Let's return to the dependable food allocation given to slaves in Egypt. The journey is taking too long. Let's blame Moses. We can't handle this. Okay. Number three didn't work. Let's try one more time. Answer number four. After all that happened through the 10 plagues and the crossing of the sea and the thunders at Mount Sinai, the people had come to believe. We need not spend much time here because the people's trust in Moses and the God of Moses was tentative at best. What then are we left with? Why were the Israelites worthy of redemption? The truth is, we just don't know. And we never will know. Each commentator over the centuries answers the question by projecting onto the ancient Israelites traits that those commentators believed that the Jewish people in their time needed in order to survive. So here's a thought. Why shouldn't we engage in the same activity? So I'm not putting myself next to Nachmanides and Rashi, but these are Stan's answers, framed in just the same way, projecting onto the past what I think is needed in the present. So, why were the Israelites worthy of redemption? Stan's reason number one. Because they allowed themselves to hear the truths of Moses' teachings. Not the literal teachings, perhaps, but the wisdom, the spiritual richness, the possibilities of rising above their current situations and conditions. Being able to hear the truth could make us worthy of redemption. That's my reason number one. Why were they worthy? Stan's reason number two. Because they understood that before their children can be properly educated, They themselves had to decide that it was worthwhile for them to own, to understand the core of Jewish teachings. That's number two. Why were they worthy of redemption? Stands reason number three. Because they really believed that Judaism possessed two powerful imperatives: to care for our own people and to commit ourselves to tikkun olam for all peoples. That's worthwhile. And now stands reason number four. Because they understood, the Israelites did, that life is fragile, time is limited, and the tasks are great. They chose to be responsible for the world in which they lived. Okay, that's it for now. Why don't you try the same game at home? Ask yourselves, what is it that we must be before we in our own day are worthy of redemption? Shabbat Shalom. Happy Martin Luther King weekend and a Hannah's bat mitzvah. See you next week. Shabbat Shalom.